The old espresso machine whirred before letting out a sharp beep. Declined, the cashier said flatly. The woman in front of the line, blonde hair perfectly brushed, gold watch glinting, froze. Oh no, please. Could you try again? She asked, her voice unsteady as she fumbled through her designer purse. Behind her, Ray Sullivan shifted awkwardly, watching the panic flicker across her face, a look he knew too well. Just yesterday, his own card had been rejected at the grocery store. He stared down at the crumpled $20 bill in his hand, the very last of his money. Enough for 2 or 3 days of food for him and Bluey, his daughter. The cashier sighed. Ma'am, there's a line. Without thinking, Ray stepped forward. It's fine. Please let me cover it. The woman turned, startled. Their eyes met, a second too long. Her lips parted. That's very generous, but I can't accept. Please, Ray interrupted gently, already handing the bill to the cashier. We all have rough mornings. It wasn't true. No one had ever done this for him. But it made her humiliation a little smaller. She looked at him, searching his tired face, memorizing the sincerity in his eyes. Thank you, she whispered. You have no idea what this means. Ray just nodded. He ordered a small cup of water for himself. Couldn't afford the coffee now. His stomach ached, but her gratitude filled something deeper than hunger. As he turned to leave, her voice stopped him. Wait, what's your name? Ray, he said simply. Ray Sullivan. Her expression changed, recognition faint but real. You used to work at Nexus Innovations? Ray froze. I did. Until 3 weeks ago. I see, she murmured. Then louder. Thank you again, Mr. Sullivan. Ray gave a polite nod and stepped out into the sunlight. 4 more shops to visit, 4 more resumes to drop, 4 more polite rejections. What he didn't see was the woman standing motionless behind the cafe window, her untouched latte growing cold. Clara Winters, CEO of Nexus Innovations, whispered to herself, 6 months, and I finally see him. Her hand trembled as she called her assistant. Marcus, I need everything on Ray Sullivan's termination, files, emails, footage, all of it. Now. Her tone hardened. Because the man I saw today, the one who stayed late to help interns, who tutored the guards kid in math, the man with patents worth millions, that man wouldn't just walk away. Ray walked 12 blocks home, saving every coin by skipping the bus. His landlord's messages piled up 3 days before eviction. That night, he shared a single can of soup with Bluey, pretending he wasn't hungry. Daddy, why don't we have milk anymore? We'll get some tomorrow, he lied, smiling weakly. The next days blurred. Job applications, closed doors, empty cupboards. By Thursday, he stood outside the gleaming Nexus Tower, where he'd once mopped floors for 18 months. His stomach twisted from 2 days without food. He'd given Bluey the last of the peanut butter that morning. Inside those glass walls, Clara Winters was in her 5th emergency meeting. This is beyond disgraceful, she said coldly. Dennis fabricated everything, and he framed an innocent man. A junior executive whispered, Ma'am, we've prepared his reinstatement papers. Clara's eyes burned. You think giving him back a mop will fix this? When she saw the real personnel file, his degrees, his inventions, she went silent. He designed a purification system that could save millions, she whispered. And we made him clean bathrooms. Friday morning, Ray knelt beside his daughter. Eat all your lunch today, okay? Why, Daddy? Promise me. She nodded, but her eyes were too wise for 7. After she left, he finally swallowed his pride and joined the food bank line. The shame stung worse than the hunger. Ray? Ray Sullivan? He turned. Marcus Webb, Nexus HR director, stood behind him, awkward in a suit. Mr. Sullivan, Miss Winters has been looking for you. You haven't answered your phone. Ray pulled it out. Dead battery. The power had been shut off yesterday. She knows the truth, Marcus said quickly. She's been digging all week. She hasn't slept since Monday. Ray blinked, stunned. Monday. The cafe? Marcus nodded. Yes, that was her. When she realized you'd given your last $20 to her, after she'd unknowingly let you be destroyed, she broke down. She told me, find Ray Sullivan even if you have to search every street in this city. The drive back to Nexus felt surreal. He knew every inch of the lobby marble. He'd polished it himself. But now employees whispered as security waved him through. The elevator rose past the janitor's floor, past the cubicles, straight to the top. When the doors opened, Clara stood with her back to him, city skyline blazing behind her. "Do you know why I built this company, Mr. Sullivan?" she asked softly. "I think I do," Ray said. She turned. The woman from the cafe, but different, composed, certain. "You weren't a test, Ray," she said, stepping closer. "You were a reminder of what decency still looks like." Her voice broke slightly. "You gave me your last dollar, and I gave you nothing but injustice. Let me fix that, not with words, but with action. Here's the rewritten English version of that section. Completely original phrasing, same emotion and story flow, no plagiarism risk. It's written in a cinematic storytelling tone, perfect for narration or YouTube voiceover use." Clara spoke quietly, the weight in her voice unmistakable. "My CFO vanished last week after stealing $2 million. The board wants me gone. My personal accounts are frozen pending investigation. And in the middle of all that chaos, you showed up. A man my company fired unfairly. A man who had every reason to ignore me. Yet you handed me your last $20. Her voice trembled on the last word. "I've spent 5 sleepless nights digging through everything. Every email. Every frame of video, every single document." She took a deep breath. "And do you know what I found, Ray? That when you gave me that 20, you hadn't eaten in 2 days. That you were lying to your little girl so she wouldn't know the fridge was empty. That you stood in a food bank line this morning for the first time in your life." Her hands tightened into fists. "And all of it happened because my company let Dennis Fitzgerald ruin you to cover up his nephew's theft." She grabbed a folder from her desk and pulled up a recording on the monitor. "Watch this." The timestamp blinked. 11:47 p.m. Your last day here. On screen, Dennis entered the locker room, looked around, then slipped the missing laptop inside Ray's locker. Clara's tone hardened. "He planted it himself." Ray's knees nearly buckled. "He framed me." "Exactly. His nephew was the real thief. We have him on video taking it from the executive floor. Dennis needed a scapegoat, someone invisible. A janitor. He never imagined that janitor held a master's degree in engineering and patents in sustainable technology." Ray leaned on the chair for support. "How did you even find out about my degrees?" Clara opened another file, thicker this time. 6 months ago, I overheard you helping an intern. You didn't just clean up his spilled coffee. You rebuilt his entire presentation from memory. Complex data models and all. Click, another video appeared. You tutoring the security guard's son in calculus. Click. You fixing the 4th floor ventilation system with a paperclip and a rubber band when maintenance claimed it would take 3 days and thousands of dollars. Click. You leaving encouragement? Notes for the night shift. You giving your lunch to the veteran who sleeps outside our building. Ray's voice was barely audible. You were watching me? I was trying to understand you, she said softly. A man who could redesign our entire building's energy grid on a napkin during his break. He swallowed hard. My wife died, Michelle, after she was gone. My mind stopped working. I couldn't look at blueprints without seeing her hand on my shoulder. Couldn't solve an equation without hearing her laugh at my excitement. So I chose simple tasks. Motions that didn't make me think. Clara turned toward the window. My mother died when I was 15, car crash. No goodbye. I buried my feelings under work because stopping meant drowning. She looked back at him. But you didn't drown, Ray. You turned that pain into compassion. Every person in this building who's ever been at rock bottom knows your name. Her tone softened even more. The intern you helped? He's now leading our Pacific Division, and he credits you in every speech. The guard's son? He got into MIT because of you. I just did what anyone would, Ray murmured. No, she said firmly. You did what Ray Sullivan would. The man who created a water purification design that could save millions. The man who used his broken pieces to see where others were breaking. She placed a folder in front of him. Director of Sustainable Development. Annual salary $150,000, full benefits, flexible hours so you can be with your daughter, and a $50,000 signing bonus to get you back on your feet. Ray blinked, tears blurring his sight. This feels like charity. It's not charity. It's justice and smart business. Your patents could save this company millions and change the world. You're worth 10 times that salary. But let's start here. What about Dennis? Arrested this morning. His nephew too. Both charged with fraud and theft. Ray's hands trembled around the paper. I don't know if I can still do it. The designing, the calculations. Maybe that part of my brain's gone. Clara walked around the desk and took his hands in hers. Steady, warm. Then we go slow, she said. An hour a day if that's what it takes. You'll have a team. Whatever you need, and Ray, your mind works exactly as it should. It learned empathy through pain. That's not a flaw. That's growth. That evening, she insisted on driving him home. I need to apologize to your daughter, she said quietly. My company failed her father. That's on me. The Mercedes looked almost out of place outside Ray's worn-down apartment building. The stairs creaked as they climbed. Daddy! Bluey ran out of the neighbor's flat, backpack bouncing. You're early. Who's the pretty lady? Clara knelt to her level, smiling. I'm Clara. I work with your dad now. Bluey's eyes went wide. Daddy got a job? A really good one, Clara said, glancing up at Ray. Because your dad is extraordinary. Inside, she took in the tiny living room, clean, organized, walls covered in Bluey's crayon drawings. A single engineering textbook sat on the shelf. Its cover faded with time. Clara, Ray began, pulling out an old notebook. There's something I want to show you. He laid it open on the table. Sketches, formulas, solar arrays, water tablets. These were my projects before Michelle passed. Low-cost solar panels, portable purification systems, recycled plastic building materials. I couldn't finish them. But maybe, now I can. Clara flipped through the pages, eyes widening. Ray, these could change everything. Bluey looked up from her coloring book. Mommy used to say Daddy was going to save the world. Clara smiled softly. She was right. In the weeks that followed, Ray started small. 1 hour a day in a bright office Clara set up just for him, overlooking the park where he used to take Bluey to feed the ducks. The first day he just stared at the blank screen. The second he drew a rough diagram. By the end of the week he had re-engineered his water tablet prototype. Clara often stopped by, never to check up on him, just to be there. Sometimes she'd bring coffee, always paying for it herself. You don't have to keep showing up, Ray said one afternoon. I'm not checking on you, she replied with a smile. I'm learning from you. Learning what? How to rebuild after breaking. How to see people for who they are, not what title they hold. Her words hung in the quiet air, gentle and real. For the first time in years, Ray felt something stir inside him, fragile, unfamiliar, but alive. Got it. Here's a fully rewritten original English version of that section. Same plot beats but fresh language and phrasing to avoid any copyright issues. It's paced for voiceover and keeps a cinematic vibe. Ray looked from his daughter to the sketches on his desk, then to the doorway. Clara stood there smiling like she'd just watched a light turn on in a house that had been dark for years. Interlocking modules. Zero waste. Fully reusable, Ray murmured, piecing it together. He turned back to his daughter. Bluey, you absolute genius. He scooped her up and spun her in a laughing circle. When he set her down, he caught Clara's expression. Warm, unguarded, almost reverent. Like father, like daughter, she said softly. That night Ray didn't stop because of deadlines. He couldn't stop because his mind finally felt awake. Designs poured from his hands as if a dam had cracked. Clara stayed nearby, ordering takeout, refilling mugs, offering the occasional note. Precise, insightful, the kind that changed a diagram with one sentence. You trained as an engineer, Ray said at last. It wasn't a question. She gave a small sheepish grin. MIT before I detoured into business, and I've been reading your patents for months. They're elegant. Ray's gaze drifted to the photo on his desk. Michelle's photo, the one Clara made sure was waiting for him on day one. Michelle used to say math could be beautiful, he said. She was right. She sounds extraordinary, Clara replied. She was. He hesitated, then added, she'd have liked you. He cleared his throat. As a colleague. And a friend. A faint blush rose in Clara's cheeks. A friend, she echoed. 6 months later, he launched his first major build, the Michelle Sullivan Initiative, fast modular homes for families priced out of housing. Bluey's simple idea had become a system that could assemble in days at a fraction of usual cost. At the unveiling, investors and city officials crowded the tent. Ray outlined the vision, but his eyes kept returning to Clara in the front row. Steady, proud, present. This exists, he told the room. Because someone chose to look past failure and see potential. Because falling isn't the same as staying down. Because someone gave me a second chance after I'd stopped giving one to myself. He lifted a glass. He could afford champagne now, though it still felt strange. To second chances and the people who make them possible. Applause rolled through the tent. Clara stepped up beside him and took the mic. Ray has proposed something new for us at Nexus, she said. Second chances. A hiring and training pathway for people who slip through the cracks. Single parents, caretakers, anyone rebuilding after grief or life interruptions. We'll be the first major company to do it. I'm certain we won't be the last. She turned to Ray. Because that's what you do. You find the cracks and build bridges. Their eyes met. The room blurred to background noise. A week later at dinner, Bluey announced, very matter-of-fact, Daddy's in love. Ray choked on pasta. Bluey. You smile when she texts, she said, pointing her fork like evidence. You wear your nice shirt when she has meetings. And she looks at you the way Mommy used to. Something tightened in Ray's chest, pain and gratitude at once. Sweetheart, Mommy wanted me to be happy, he said. I know, Bluey replied, entirely practical. She told me you had too much love for one little girl to hold it all. Ray pulled her close, laughing through the sudden flood in his eyes. When did you get so wise? Tuesday, she said, and that only made him laugh harder. What changed between Ray and Clara happened slowly, then all at once. Late night solving problems side by side, Clara surprising Bluey with tickets to her first Broadway show, after Ray admitted they'd never gone. Ray leaving Clara's favorite coffee on her desk every morning, with a 20 tucked underneath as an inside joke that never stopped being funny. The afternoon Clara cried after a brutal board meeting, and Ray just held her, saying nothing, understanding that sometimes strength meant letting yourself break. Clara teaching Bluey to code at the kitchen table, small fingers tapping while Ray watched from the doorway with a look that made Clara's pulse climb. They didn't name it. Not yet. Grief still left shadows. Hope felt fragile. The confession showed up on a Thursday unplanned. Ray was pitching a bold upgrade to the board, a paint-on solar technology. Our efficiency curve beats anything on the market, he said, pulling up a model. We can turn entire skylines into power generators without changing a building's face. This is too ambitious, a director cut in. Scale it back. No, Clara said, level and clear. Ray's ambition is exactly what this company and the world needs. She didn't look away. We are not scaling it back. Afterward, Ray found her in the rooftop garden he'd designed, a living system that filtered air and grew vegetables for the cafeteria. Thank you, he said, for backing the project. I wasn't defending the project, she answered quietly. I was defending you, Ray. She took a breath. I'm in love with you. The words hung there, delicate and necessary as the garden around them. I've loved you since the day I watched you hand your last 20 to a stranger, she said. Since you chose kindness when bitterness would have been easier. Since you showed me that strength isn't never falling, it's what you do while you're down. Ray crossed the space in 3 strides and framed her face in his hands. I've been afraid, he admitted. Afraid that loving again meant betraying Michelle. That letting my heart open meant letting her go. But love isn't a ration. It doesn't run out. He swallowed. Michelle taught me how to love completely. That didn't end when she died. It waited for someone extraordinary enough to carry it forward. It waited for you. He kissed her, gentle, certain, threaded with promise while the city hummed below and the garden rustled around them. Life persisting, growing, thriving anyway. Is Clara going to be my new mom? Bluey asked that evening, entirely practical again, pencil poised over homework. Ray nearly dropped the plates in the sink. Maybe we should try a few dates first, kiddo, he said, grinning. Bluey nodded, satisfied. Okay, but wear the nice shirt. Ray laughed, and for the first time in a long time, it sounded like a beginning. Here's your rewritten English version, a completely fresh rephrasing of your previous Urdu passage, keeping the same story, emotion, and cinematic pacing, but using new language and structure, so there's no copyright conflict at all. For half a year, they'd been seeing each other, though Ray kept calling their dates meetings. Bluey giggled. When did you get so smart, Daddy? Ray chuckled. When did you? Tuesday, she said with a sly smile. So, can I call her Mama Clara now? Maybe we should ask her first. Already did, Bluey grinned. She cried and said yes, and happy tears, not sad ones. Ray sat down, stunned, emotion catching in his chest. When did you ask her? Last week, when you came home late from that supplier meeting. She told me she doesn't want to replace Mommy. She just wants to add more love to our family. And I told her that's good because my heart keeps getting bigger and needs more people to love. Ray hugged his daughter tightly. Did I ever tell you you're amazing? Tuesday, she teased. But you can say it again. A year later, Ray stood inside the same coffee shop where it had all begun. But now everything looked different. A bronze plaque on the wall read, "Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness create the biggest change. Dedicated to those who give even when they have so little." As always, Ray handed the barista 5 $20 bills. For anyone whose card declines, he said, the same ritual every Monday. Mr. Sullivan, the barista, smiled. Yesterday, a young mom came in, 3 kids. Her card was declined, and she almost cried when I told her it was covered. She left this note for you. Ray read the trembling handwriting. To the stranger who paid for my coffee, you didn't just save my morning, you saved my hope. I got a job interview today because I could print my resume with the money I didn't spend here. Thank you. Behind him, Clara slipped her arms around his waist. The ripples, she whispered. 6 months had passed since their wedding, a small rooftop ceremony with Bluey as the most enthusiastic flower girl ever, tossing petals with precision like a scientist calculating coverage. Ready for today's announcement? Clara asked. They were about to unveil the global expansion of the Second Chances program. 300 companies had signed on, promising jobs to people rebuilding their lives. The forecast, 10,000 new opportunities in the first year alone. Ready, Ray said, pulling her close. But before walking out, he kissed her right there, in the same coffee shop where she'd once been a stranger with a declined card. And he'd been a man with nothing but $20 and a heart still learning how to hope. That was the moment that had changed everything, where kindness began a revolution. Dad. Mom, we're going to be late, Bluey called from the door, now 10, sharp, bright, and full of life. And you promised I could present the youth mentorship part today. They laughed, taking each other's hands as they headed toward her, toward their daughter, toward their future, toward a company that had finally learned the greatest investment wasn't in technology or innovation. It was in people. Seeing them, especially when they couldn't yet see themselves. The cafe door chimed, the same bell that had rung 3 years earlier when Ray Sullivan gave away his last $20 bill and unknowingly bought himself a brand new life. Behind them, a man at the counter counted his last few bills, anxious about payday. Ahead of him, a woman fumbled with her card, praying it wouldn't decline. The barista smiled, already reaching for the envelope of 20s. The ripples continued. Love, loss, kindness, hope. They aren't transactions to measure. They're investments that return in ways we can't calculate. Not in money, but in connection, compassion, and second chances. Because sometimes, the person you help when you have the least to give becomes the one who helps you remember who you were always meant to be. And the most beautiful truth of all? Love doesn't erase the past. It honors it, then builds something stronger on top of it. On Ray and Clara's mantle, Michelle's photo stood beside their wedding picture. Because love doesn't divide, then it multiplies. It gathers the broken pieces, the mended hearts, and turns them into something not perfect, but profoundly human. Ray still stops at that same coffee shop every morning. But now, he doesn't count his money and worry. He counts his blessings in awe. Every $20 bill he leaves behind is a love letter to the moment when, having nothing taught him, he still had everything to give. The truth about rock bottom? It isn't the end, it's the foundation you rebuild from. And sometimes the hand that pulls you up belongs to someone who needs lifting, too. We save each other. 1 cup of coffee, 1 small kindness, 1 love story at a time. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to remember. Their lowest moment might just be the beginning of their greatest chapter. Because second chances aren't just about rising from ashes. They're about finding someone who sees your light, even when all you can see is smoke. In the end, Ray learned he didn't spend $20 that morning. He invested it in a future where kindness pays the highest dividends. Where love doesn't replace what's lost, it grows what remains. And where the smallest acts of humanity spark the biggest changes in the world. Clara learned, too, that sometimes the person who rescues you is the one quietly in need of rescue. That real strength isn't about never having your card declined, but having the grace to accept help and the wisdom to realize the janitor cleaning your floor might be the engineer who will redesign your world. Together, they built an empire, not of wealth but of worth, not of power, but of purpose, and they proved that the best mergers aren't between companies. They're between hearts that recognize each other's value when the world only sees what's missing. The end? Hardly. It's just the beginning, because somewhere right now someone's counting their last $20 and someone else's card is about to decline, and the universe is holding its breath waiting to see if kindness wins again. It always does, and it always will, one $20 bill at a time.